Hi, Mariam. Nice to have you here in Graz. I'm very happy to welcome you here at the campus. You're an expert in international communication and negotiation, consulting businesses in doing market entries and how to negotiate in international settings. Your own background is pretty much international. So I'm really happy to discuss this topic with you today. Let's come to the first question. What is really important in cross-cultural communication and negotiations? What are the basics? What do we really have to pay attention to?
Yeah, well, what I have seen and what I find is extremely important, I have seen that in working with executives and working with managers who have a lot of negotiations across cultures, is that, of course, nowadays people want to go for a quick fix. So, meaning that, I have a negotiation in China, so tell me the do's and don'ts about China, or I have a negotiation in the US, tell me the do's and don'ts, and so on and so forth. And people think, okay, they get a recipe of a list of do's and list of don'ts, and if they learn that by heart, nothing else can go wrong. Well, I have to say, fortunately or unfortunately, it's not that simple. So, according to my experience, there are three dimensions, as mentioned by Hofstede, which are very important in cross-cultural communication and cross-cultural negotiation. So, if you just imagine a triangle, on the very bottom of the triangle are the universal aspects of human nature. So, when we want to negotiate and communicate with people from other cultures, our mind basically wants to go and look for all the differences. But this is not the correct direction. We have to first look at a point of reference and look at the similarities and see how we can bond with people from other cultures. And how do we do that? By going back to the human nature.
So you basically have to start by yourself in thinking about communicating with different cultural types.
Absolutely. The best point of reference would be to start with ourselves. There are many blind points. We do many things in communication and negotiation that we're not aware of. We're not even aware of our values because we just live them. We just live them the way we were taught in school, the way we were taught as kids, the way we were taught within a culture, but we're not aware of what we're doing and we're not aware of how it's seen from the outside. So I would say the best way is to start with ourselves, analyzing our own behavior, analyzing our own communication pattern, our own tendencies, our own values, and so on. And not to immediately then go and look for the differences, but to see, okay, what do we have in common with others? Because that helps us build a platform which is very solid. And this solid platform can then carry the differences or the potentials for conflict which might occur in cross-cultural negotiations.
Don't I have to develop a so to speak, cross-cultural mind in order to be open for these differences then?
Absolutely. Very important would be to develop your cultural intelligence. Now, what is cultural intelligence? Cultural intelligence does not mean only to know the do's and don'ts about a culture, but basically it means awareness of yourself, as we said, then specific skills which would help you as an effective communicator to interact with others, and then knowledge about specific cultures that you're interacting with. So basically there are these three dimensions to cultural intelligence which would be helpful in preparing for international cross-cultural negotiations.
This is what you mentioned with this triangle, yeah?
Absolutely.
The basic, the middle strip, and the top.
Exactly. So as we said, the basic would be the general universal human aspect and human nature. Then the middle part would be then the specifics of a culture, which we can discuss in a moment. And the very top would be the specifics and the uniqueness of my counterpart, of the negotiator I'll be working with.
There's another topic that we talked about before. It's those dimensions of cultures.
Yeah.
Could you very shortly, very clearly give us some insight into these concepts?
Well, it's very important. When we go to a different country or when we are exposed to a different culture, um, there are different dimensions that we need to pay attention to. And best we can show that on the iceberg model. The iceberg model tells us what are the immediate impacts of the culture that we can perceive with our five senses. And these are things like music, pace of life, sports, literature, language, food, gestures, architecture, population greetings, how people, dress up, how they talk, do they show their emotions, are they outgoing, are they reserved, and so on. However, this is only the top of the iceberg. That means if you're somewhere as a tourist, maybe that's enough to know. But if you want to do business with another culture, this is too superficial. So we have to go to the bottom of the iceberg. Now, the bottom of the iceberg tells us about values in a culture, dimensions in a culture, which are not very obvious. So here, for example, we can look at the cultural diversity scale to see some of these dimensions which are interesting for us to look at. This is, for example, to see in a culture, is this a culture where equality is more important or hierarchy? Because if equality is more important, that means decisions are taken maybe together. Whereas if hierarchy is important, that means the boss makes the decisions. So if I am negotiating with someone who is of a certain level of management, if they do not have the power of attorney to make decisions, there's no point putting them under pressure. Yeah. Or for example, are they more task-oriented or are they more relationship-oriented? For example, in Australia, people are very much relationship-oriented. So you have to bond with them. You have to make friends with them before doing business with them. Whereas in some other countries, for example, Germany, task orientation is very important. That means structure is important, step by step is important. Yeah? Or let's have a look at another dimension, for example, how people deal with conflicts. This is also very interesting. If you look at China, a very important value is that people do not want to lose face. They don't want to lose face. They don't want you to lose face. So they are evasive towards conflicts. They don't like open conflicts. Whereas in some European countries, for example, people do not mind conflict. So they want to put the facts on the table and discuss it and argue it and have a solution. So of course there could be a cultural clash here, right? So I have heard from a lot of managers I work with that they say, well, when I go to India, for example, or I go to China, people say yes, yes, but that doesn't mean our yes. For example, if you look at Austria, in Austria, it's very clear when you say yes that you're committing to an act. Whereas in India, when you say yes, it does not mean any kind of commitment. This yes only refers to, yes, I can hear you. Or at best, yes, I understand you, but it does not mean any kind of commitment or agreement. And this can, cause a lot of confusion.
Thanks a lot.